Hey everybody, welcome back to Lettermen Row. I'm Austin Ward, joined by Jeremy Birmingham and Spencer Holbrook. And I think we're finally nearing the end here of the roster decisions for Ohio State as they regroup, retool, try and get back, win another Big Ten title, get back to the college football playoff next season. Broken down just about everybody. Now we're up to Tyreke Smith, maybe one of the best for last. And he had an interesting decision to make, Berm, because he's really, he was supposed to be this next guy, the next Chase Young. We've heard that for several years. His athleticism is off the charts, and everybody knows it. But he's dealt with injuries for 3 years. The number of games he's played, he's basically only played one full season spread over 3 years. He's been productive in those games, and certainly had the best game of his career, I think, against Clemson in the Sugar Bowl. So he could have made the leap, but instead on Monday he decided he'd come back. That was obviously huge for Ohio State, especially with Jonathan Cooper also moving on. For those rushmen, having Tyreke Smith to build around and a chance for him to maybe become that first-round pick is absolutely enormous for Ohio State.
Yeah, I actually saw, and I don't know whose mock draft it was, but I saw a mock draft about 2 weeks before the Clemson game that had Tyreke Smith as the 25th pick in the draft. And I think that there's some people out there who see the body type, the athleticism, the production when he has played, and then the understanding that he has had 3 years under Larry Johnson, and that is turning into a pretty good selling point for the NFL right now. If you've worked with Larry Johnson, then you come into the NFL ready to go. And I think that there would have been teams ready and willing to take a leap of faith with Tyreke in saying that you know at least what you're going to get on the field from this kid. But I think ultimately you're right. It just came down to not being able to put enough on tape for him to feel comfortable that he was ready to go. He won like 24% of his pass rush battles this year, according to the Pro Football Focus rating stuff. He was one of the highest ranked linemen in the country in that respect. But even this year, he wasn't able to really be the consistent force that the Buckeyes needed. And you hope that the opportunity to get his full year where he's going to be the guy that is pretty much on the field the entire time next year, that you see what he's really capable of.
Yeah, I remember having conversations, and I think that Spencer wrote about this maybe last year, where Chase Young was just raving about Tyreke Smith's potential and that he was going to be the one to take the torch, that, he got off the football every bit as fast as Chase Young did, that they would, measure themselves against each other in the film room with Larry Johnson, and that, he expected him to be that caliber of game changer that would continue that tradition from the Bosa's to Chase Young, and that Tyreke Smith would be the next guy. This year wound up being a little bit more of a pass rush by committee. And Larry Johnson also doesn't have any problem with that, even though he's had these superstars. But I think when you looked at if there was a criticism of that defensive line this year, which was they got a bunch of pressures but not a bunch of sacks, you kind of need one guy who is not only going to turn those, whatever the percentage was, burn 24%, turn those into big wins and deflecting passes or getting in front of the face of a quarterback, but to create some of these sacks, to create the strip sacks. And Tyreke Smith, we've seen that he has the ability to do that with a couple of forced fumbles already in his career. So, one more year, maybe that's what he does, Spencer.
Yeah, now every time I think of Tyreke Smith, I continue to think about the Clemson game. And I also look back at that Maryland game from 2019 where the quarterback was running the opposite way and Tyreke just tracked him down because he was that quick off the ball, blew the tackle away, and got to the quarterback. Every time you see a glimpse of what he can do, it does remind you of Chase Young. It really does. And that's a really high comparison, a lofty comparison, but it's almost fair because he has that talent. And when Chase Young tells you that he's got that talent, well, you should probably believe what Chase Young says. And I think that's an interesting point because this defense was missing a dominant pass rusher this year. And I think it hurt the secondary. And that's not a knock on any of the guys that played defensive end this year, but it was just that piece was missing from the puzzle. And I think if Tyreke Smith can take one more step, it doesn't even have to be a big leap, just a step, in the right direction, he can be that. And I think if he is that, Ohio State's defense is going to be twice the defense it was this year with that.
I think you look at it, like it was just a weird year to evaluate that rushman unit. Jonathan Cooper was a rock and he was out there for every game, but Tyreke Smith missed time late in the year. He obviously was dealing with some nagging injuries as he has over the last couple years. Tyler Friday was missing in action for an extended period of time. He's such a key part of that rotation. Javonte Jean-Baptiste, didn't look like he was quite ready to be a full-time guy there. And Zach Harrison, we thought he'd make that second-year leap. Didn't quite work out the way anybody really envisioned. Not that it can't or won't happen moving forward, but I don't know how to put my finger on it, Byrne, but it wasn't quite what you expect from Ohio State. And I think it's not that Larry Johnson forgot how to coach or that these guys aren't extremely talented, because we know that they are, but maybe this unit just kind of, you take Chase Young away, and as Spencer said, if you don't have that dominant pass rusher and you don't have that spring camp, we talk about being close to the football and how you need that time to develop. I don't know. It seemed to impact that group maybe more than others.
Of course it did. I mean, since 2013 to 2019, you had a top 5 NFL draft pick at defensive end. And when you're dealing with Joey Bosa to Nick Bosa to Chase Young, the beauty of what Larry Johnson's been able to do over the years is rotate in a ton of guys, but you always still had Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa, or Chase Young. And believe it or not, those guys are difference makers. So you need someone to step up and be that every down guy. And now you hope that Tyreke can be the one side next year while the Buckeyes figure out who is going to replace Jonathan Cooper, whether it's Tyler Friday, whether it's Zach Harrison, Javonte Jean-Baptiste, Jack Sawyer coming in, the number 1 ranked defensive end in the country, 5-star in the 2021 class. He'll be arriving on campus this weekend. You just hope that someone's able to step up and provide that extra juice from the other side, because Tyreke, as you alluded to, has had some nagging injuries that keep him off the field for 7-8 plays at a time. And when that happens, you need someone else to step up. But I think it was pretty clear watching the Alabama game what Ohio State missed from not having Tyreke Smith on the field. And it was not even, sacks like we've talked about, but getting to the pressure to Mac Jones a little bit earlier, a second earlier, or 2 seconds earlier, could have made a big difference in the game when you're dealing with receivers running open down the field. So, there's going to be a need for someone to step up. Tyreke Smith is the most well-positioned, most talented, most experienced guy to do it. So, he has to emerge as the leader of that group and take on the emotional leadership role that Jonathan Cooper had, that Chase Young picked up 2 years ago. That is really what drives that unit. And now Tyreke has to be that guy.
What are reasonable expectations for Jack Sawyer at that position, do you think?
I mean, I think Jack is a guy that physically is going to be as good or better than anybody on the roster. And that's, crazy to say about an incoming freshman, but at 6'5", almost 260 pounds already, he's coming in at the size that Sam Hubbard left Ohio State. He's coming in a little bit unproven, though. He hasn't played football in almost a year and a half because he hurt his MCL in the middle of his junior season and then sat out his senior year amongst the uncertainty with COVID. And he has not sat around eating Doritos. I mean, he has put on 30 pounds of muscle. He looks great. He's a kid that wants the expectations and wants the pressure. But if you watch Jack's high school tape, you might see sometimes when he didn't dominate the way you would think he should based on his pure size and athleticism. And so Larry Johnson's real challenge is going to be, how do you turn that motor on and keep it on all the time? And that's where, again, someone like Tyreke Smith has to step up and show him the ropes of what it takes to succeed every single day in the program. If he does buy into that and does it quickly, there's no reason he can't have a Bosa type impact as a freshman. Joey Bosa as a freshman was incredible. Nick Bosa was extremely productive. Chase Young was not as productive, but he was also playing behind Nick Bosa and Sam Hubbard and Tyquan Lewis and all these other guys. So Jalen Holmes, et cetera. So there's an opportunity for Jack to step up and be that guy. Can he do that is really up to how much he buys in.
But Berm, wasn't the last time Jack Sawyer on the field, and I don't mean to make this a Q&A to Berm, but the last time Jack Sawyer was on a football field in pads, he was what, like 225, 230? I mean, he wasn't even that big. So you wonder how his body weight and his progression in the weight room turns into production at defensive end, because you need that weight in college, but you also need to be as quick as he was when he was at 225, 230 on the football field.
Yeah, he was in basketball shape the last time he was on the football field, and that's different. I mean, he spent the last year, he gave up basketball. He changed what he was eating. He changed the way he's working out. And I would assure you that he's had some conversations with Mick Marotti about what the Buckeyes need him to do to change the strength, to change where that power is coming from. And what Jack has an advantage over, and Austin, we've talked in these videos all week about how you don't want to put pressure on incoming freshmen to step up and be that guy. Being a Columbus kid, Jack's had the opportunity to spend almost 3 years working with Larry Johnson already, and that is something that I don't think can be understated in his development. The hand placement, the way that he's able to use his hands and feet in the pass rush is something that he has taken from Larry Johnson over the last 3 years. So the development track should be a lot shorter for him because he has been able to talk to and work with the Ohio State staff pretty much anytime he wanted in the last handful of years. So I would expect it really to be about how does he mentally attack it? And if he attacks it anywhere near like he did the last year of preparing for college and changing his body, changing his diet, changing his workouts, then I think that Jack's a player that is going to be on the field, first or second drive of the season next year.
Well, Larry Johnson has proven that he's nothing if not patient. It still took a little while before he really wanted to turn Joey Bosa loose, Nick Bosa, Chase Young, et cetera, even if, by the middle of the year, what you're going to have and what you can get from them. And if Larry Johnson has a healthy Tyreke Smith, and if he has Zach Harrison making that jump that was expected for this year, and then Tyler Friday fully cleared and ready to go again after this offseason, might not need it. Just be a bonus, sort of like Tyreke Smith even coming back for one more year. As far as we know, this might be the end of this series, a busy week talking about what's happening with the Ohio State roster. If there's anything else going on, we'll cover it here with some rapid reactions. Hoping to hear from Coach Ryan Day soon to get an update on where things are heading, what's going to actually transpire in spring ball, what they'll be allowed to do, how workouts will happen. We're going to try and get some more information on that for you as we wrap up here with some of the instant off-season moves. Berm, Spencer Holbrook, I'm Austin Ward. Thanks, everybody, for joining us yet again here on a busy week at Lettermen Row. Stay with us for full coverage of the Ohio State Buckeyes.